Hey, my name is Jonathan, and today I'm showing you the NUX Amp Core Studio and its potential to be your next bass rig. When it comes to bass-specific pedals, there's not a whole lot of companies making stuff for bass players. In this case, NUX does have the Melvin Lee Davis, which is a great preamp and DI pedal. Takes pedals super well. There's different emulation of speakers and microphone cabs that you can use via the software. Conveniently, they put that amp model in the amp core. So if you're a guitar player but also play bass, you have the option of having the Bassmate, which is, I think, their take on the Bassman, and they have the MLD in here as well. But what makes this a little more flexible in a sense than this guy is that there are far more bass cabinets available in this than in the stock version of the MLD. Is this a better option than this? That's really up to you, but today, let's say you could only get your hands on this. Could you use it as a bass amp? And the answer is most definitely yes. Now, although there's only one real dedicated bass amplifier in the amp core, there are many great sounding amplifier cabinets in there. Different sizes, different speaker configuration, and different microphone choices. Add this with the post EQ, and the amp core for bass is far more versatile than you may think. So here's where it gets interesting for bass players. I have a few details here that I've written down, so I'm going to use my notes. The first one is that you can run direct to front of house using a DI, or you can run direct to your audio interface for recording. The headphone out lets you practice silently without having to use a convoluted setup. Now, if you still insist on bringing a traditional rig, the amp core can be used as your backup system. So if your amp dies for whatever reason, you can just slap this thing out, put it on your board, and you're ready to go. Some of the features in the amp core eliminate the need for extra pedals, so less redundancy. You don't need a noise gate, it's included in there. You don't need the EQ, you have a great EQ with it. And for the signal routing, you have a little more option than a traditional plug in the front of the amp. So you can get your overdrive pedals directly into the amp core, but you can set all the modulation and time effects into the effects loop of the amp core. And unlike a lot of modelers out there, this thing is less than 200 bucks. So it's kind of a no-brainer. If you need a backup, but you can't spend a whole lot on a bigger model that sells for thousands of dollars, this is kind of a no-brainer. So as a bass player, you may be at that point where you're asking yourself, should I go digital? Now, you don't have to go all in, right? You could just be using something like the Amp Core as a backup to your bass rig. If you're able to play with a traditional bass setup and no one complains about it, awesome. But there's a lot of people now that whenever they go out for gigs, it's a silent stage, everything goes to the front of house, so you kind of have to adapt. You could use a traditional head with something like the 2 notes captor, but I mean, that is quite expensive too. Great sounding unit, I have two. But maybe you want to go with a more budget-friendly option. Also, if you do fly gigs, a lot of people that are professional sometimes have gigs overseas, and they have to get on that plane and they have to go through TSA, which is so fun. You don't want to do that by having to rent a system out in Germany if you're playing out in Germany and stressing out about not knowing what amp you're going to have when you get there. So if you have something like the Amp Core, you can put that in your bag and just bring it with you and make sure that you have a consistent sound, and you can even buy a second unit as a backup to this one. So there's a lot of advantages to going down the route of something like the Amp Core or the Melvin Lee Davis or whatever unit that are out there that are interesting to you as a bass player. Definitely a consideration. Do I think it completely replaces the traditional bass rig? It could. Yeah, it's definitely a great option. It's not too expensive, and in my opinion, it sounds great. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you want to see more videos about the Amp Core, I have 2 more in the playlist appearing on screen right now, so just click on one of those, and I'm going to see you in the next one. Cheers.